and 1.
Thanks, guys. So glad to be here. Yeah, long-time listener, first-time caller. You mentioned it from the get-go, Chris. I mean, putting literally is a majority mental preparation, sports psychology, and physical movement that you can repeat and sequence over and over again. I always say, you can miss a putt up, down, left, and right. And in the end, if you can eliminate the error margin from left to right, you're on point, because we're always adjusting height, whether it's wind driven or height driven, up and down putts. Of course, I'd rather hit high than low because it had a chance. Never had a chance when it hits the target. So that's where those variables come in. So depending on your style or, that advantage that you want over the disadvantage.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Hey, welcome to the Fling show tonight. It's good to be here. It's going to be a totally something different for you tonight. I made a friend a few months back. I have a hard time remembering exactly when it was, but I wanted to bring Bill on. First, I'm going to go over a little bit about what's going on in the disc golf world. Looks like just checking through worlds going on there. It's Flagstaff AM championship up there. It looks like Sheldon is doing some work. He's like currently in 6th place. Let's see what we're at. 4 strokes off the lead. Not too bad. And I'm assuming they've got a million more rounds to go. Looks like on the pro side, forgive me if I missed somebody, but the one that stood out to me was up here in the MP 55 plus with Michael Infante, currently in a tie with Patrick Brown at -8. It's good to see some local boys doing their thing. I want to thank Chris for, first of all, doing all the work that he's done under some excruciating pain, I'm sure. He's behind the scenes tonight, so you're without your normal host. But without further ado, I want to bring on Bill, and this is Bill Hefner. We're going to talk to Bill about his journey, and it's really good to have you. Thanks for coming, Bill. Short notice. I really appreciate it. How you doing?
Yeah, it's really good to be here. Thanks for having me.
And the thing that stood out to me, I did just a little quick PDJ search on you, 7496. That's a 4-digit number, and looks like you signed up in
Right.
1993.
Yeah.
That was an elite club that you were a part of, and now it's just expanded, and we're well over 250,000 PDJ members now. Are you aware of what's going on in the disc golf world? Do you keep up with it?
I watch a lot of disc golf on streaming, the Joe Mez Pro stuff, and whatever it's changed to now. I hear they got bought out, but I watch a lot of that stuff. I don't keep up to date with it. I watch a lot of stuff, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. I remember when we started, I played for maybe about 10 years or so, and I thought, man, it'd be really cool to have good coverage in disc golf like they do in the PGA. And now here we are, and we've got it. And it's just really cool to be able to see that stuff.
Yeah, it is, and I'll watch it. I'm definitely a junkie. I watch it. I have the subscription to the Disc Golf Network, so I get to see how they present the thing, and I also watch Joe Mez post production, see how they do it, and I think they're doing an excellent job. I have a couple of things that I wish I could see better. As far as for me, one of the things that sticks out to me is how they shoot the putt from behind, and it makes it look like a 5-foot putt, like if they had the side view. That's my one thing. I need more side view. I want to see that long putt, I want to see the whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool, man. I love what's going on with it. But one thing that the reason I wanted to bring you on is because I know of you. I played in the Metroplex probably about the same time you did. I started at about 98, 99. And then I moved around, and then we ended up back in the Dallas-Fort Worth area around 2003, 2002. I'm not sure if you were there, but I was playing out there a lot there. I was a Zebo's guy and Veterans Park and all those. So what were some of your first experiences in that area? Where did you first discover disc golf?
I remember, the reality is, me and my brother, when we were living in Mesquite, we used to take the butter dish lids off out of mom's drawer, and we'd go outside and we would throw the butter dish lids and have object golf. We did that when I was, I don't know, probably 8. So he was probably 5 and I was 8. And we were doing that from real young, because golf is, it's more of an idea, whether you're hitting the ball or throwing a disc. You play it on the pool table, but we were doing that pretty early. So I liked the idea. I just never knew that there was disc golf was a thing. I was a baseball player. I remember being at a golf course in Dallas. What's that golf course right off of Dolphin Road? Anyway, we were there, Tennyson. We were at Tennyson Golf Course, and I saw somebody throw a disc, and I saw it go a long ways, and I thought, I don't know what that is, but I want to be a part of that. So around 1989, that was the summer of '89, is whenever my cousin said, we're going to go play Frisbee golf. And I was like, okay, I'm in. And I remember I started on hole 3 at Skyline, Lake Highlands course. They called it Skyline. And I remember throwing the first shot about 35 feet up into a tree. And I knew I was hooked. That first terrible shot, I knew I was hooked. Yeah. So playing since '89.
So it wouldn't, because you weren't current, I wasn't able to find out what your wins were. What, you got 2 wins, and how did that go? What was that all about?
My significant wins, I guess you would say, were I won a lot in AM. I did a lot of AM wins. I stayed in there for about a year or so, and then I started moving up. And I remember at Cameron Park when I started to go pro. Cameron Park, when I played against Nolan Grider, and he was real young. So I
Uh-huh.
think he was like 14 when he
Yeah.
was playing. He still almost beat me. And that was when I was at the top. I was getting, it was really good. And it's the only time I think I've ever beat. He was 14. Anyway,
Nice.
we were playing out there, and that was my first pro cash. And I took plastic so that I didn't have to be pro. And me and Scott Petrie played national doubles at Round Rock, the 94 doubles, and me and him won the advanced AM out there. And I really enjoyed that because there was a lot of teams. I don't know how many, but there was like almost 3 flights of teams out there. It was a great win, a lot of fun. I have a first place at Louisiana State championships in Shreveport. And I think it was 94 as well. And I think I have a 7 Oaks in San Antonio, my only 4-round pro win is in San Antonio, unless I'm missing one, and I very well could be, because the other part of my story leads to lack of memory from time to time.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm really interested in. Just to let somebody know who might be watching. One night I answered kind of a call for help on Facebook on Messenger, and I started communicating with you, and I think it was right in the middle of the storm of what was going on, because from what and I've got to be totally transparent and honest. Sometimes I feel like I know something that somebody might need to understand or whatever, but that's just not, that's just not it's not the truth, but sometimes I feel like, okay, yeah, I know. So, but when that was going on that night, I feel like I felt the weight of the heaviness that was going on. And I immediately stopped with my silly advice and stuff and just started listening, which I think is probably good advice for anybody in this world, is to just listen to what somebody has to say. So give me an idea, or let's have a little bit of the background about what happened maybe that night or leading up to the time when we made the connection, when we actually made friends that night for the first time, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't think I had met you before. I'm trying to remember. I may have ran across you back in the day, but I'm pretty sure that was the night we made friends, so just kind of give our audience a little bit of an idea of what we're talking about.
Well, it's hard. It's really hard to just, if I talk about that night, you don't get the backstory as much without going into it too much. My life has been interesting, not boring, never boring. I grew up abused, like physically abused, and it was intense. It was very intense. I could describe it, but I have never heard of anybody taking that much physical abuse in their life. 10 people put together, I haven't heard of. So I dealt with that. And so when I was about 16, drugs ended up being a really good choice for me, because I started feeling, I didn't have those feelings that I had before that took that away from me. So whether it was alcohol or marijuana or, and then it became everything, whatever it was, it didn't matter. Whatever you had was what I wanted if it made me not feel. So, I began my career in staying, escape from reality and feeling, inebriated in some form. So I used drugs from the time I was 16 till I was 39. And, so to do the fast forward thing on all that, I got clean. When I was 39 years old. I remember, it's in my song. It's in the song Hallelujah on Net 153. That's the label. That's the name of the band. Anyway, if you look at Hallelujah, you can hear it. It says, I remember crying and praying and using at the same time and asking the Lord his light to shine. And he put the solution right here in my path and now a spiritual life today. I have, hallelujah. And so it's that song is a part of my story, which really kind of began at that time in '06 in October, where when I did that, when I was crying and praying and using at the same time, and when I'm saying using, that was at the point where I was a career Methodist, and some of you guys will understand what that is. You know, I used all drugs until I was about 32, and once 32 hit, methamphetamines was what I used, and so that's all I used, and that was it. I became very loyal to it, and it was a life that I led where I didn't have a time that I planned on bathing, sleeping, or eating. And that was a real life for me for a long time. Homelessness was a part of it. All of the terrible things that come along with drug use, you know. And so I was doing that, and I'd played disc golf pretty good before then, but when that hit, you know, when that hit, it went from, you know, just kind of party drug kind of thing to really, you know, using hard street drugs, and that's what I did. But when I got, when I got to that point in October of '06, and I remember after that prayer, I was walking around because I had this '96 Toyota Tacoma that should be in some kind of a tweaker museum somewhere, because it had a busted out windshield, and I mean busted out. You couldn't really see through it very good. The stickers that were on it were fictitious, right? They were just printed up and stuck on the glass. The hood wouldn't stay latched. The leaf springs were welded together in the back. The gear shift worked backwards, right? You had to know how to work it. And the radiator, man, it would overheat probably 3 or 4 times a day if I was trying to go do some stuff. So I figured out how to, you know, pull over, and they kept the water in the truck and all that stuff. And it was a real thing, man. And so at that time that I was, like I said, of crying and praying and using, and I started walking from the house because I was trying to find a radiator for my truck, because that was my only thing, my transportation. And I remember walking around. I went to this lawnmower shop, and the guy in there, I asked him, "And you got a radiator?" He said, "I got this one." And I looked at it, and you know, I was a dope fiend, but I was still, you know, I was still pretty smart. I could figure stuff out. I looked at it, and I knew that it would work. It wasn't for mine, and I would have to put it in upside down, you know. So you put the cap on first, you put it in, put the lower hose in, and then you just fill it all up with water, the engine side, the radiator side, and once you start overflowing, pop them the hose back on the radiator. And man, I was, you know, I knew it would work, and it did work. But the magic happened whenever I went to paying for that radiator. Is I remember walking across that parking lot, and I saw a bunch of people standing in the parking lot, and it was and they were all smiling and hugging each other and looked very happy. They looked exactly the way that I wish I felt. And I was like, "Who the hell are you guys?" And they're like, "Dude, we're addicts, staying clean." And I was like, because I was pretty sure they were going to go, "Yeah, this is a cult," you know, because we're really happy. And I was at the place in my life where I was going to go, "Well, show me the handshake, because I'm in. I just want to smile like y'all are." You know? It ended up being, you know, NA, Narcotics Anonymous. And so that's what I know God answered my prayer for, you know, to try to begin to find a new way to live. And so I got clean then. And 2 great things happened is I stopped using, and I stopped being full of shit. I mean, everything in my life before that, I was basically full of shit. I mean, I would not tell the truth unless the truth was the most beneficial thing for me. Because I learned as a kid, you know, if you tell the truth, you're going to get in trouble. So go ahead and lie about it anyway. And so I just basically lived my life that way. I wanted to be, you know, I was trying to be what I thought they wanted me to be, whether it was my dad or the church or the school or the sports or whatever it was. You know, I didn't know who the hell I was. So at that moment, those 2 things happened for me. I got clean, and I started being an honest person. And, you know, life really took a big change for me at that point in 2006. And I stayed clean for a while, did a lot of stuff that was very interesting. One of it was 4 years I drove a transport van for psychiatric patients. And let me tell you, I could write a book. It was some interesting stuff because I used to ride in the back of those vans, and now I'm driving the van, so big change, a lot of difference. You know what I'm saying? That was kind of cool, but that ended in 2012. And I got married in 2010, right? I got married in 2010, and I was clean until 2016 when I found out some stuff that nobody wants to find out, right? Nobody wants to find out this kind of information, and it was going to destroy my marriage. I knew it was, but codependency was much greater of an obsession for me than drugs. Drugs was a solution, right? My problem was the codependency, just this desire to want to fit in. I needed to fit in somewhere, right? Dad wanted me to be a certain way and I couldn't live up to it. The school wanted me to act a certain way. I couldn't live up to it. Sports wanted me to do certain things. I did that pretty good though. I was pretty badass in sports. I was on the varsity of a 5A baseball team, North Mesquite, as a freshman. That's pretty good. But I excelled in baseball. But what I found out was, just because you're successful in something, that doesn't solve the problem, right? Social acceptability doesn't necessarily equal recovery or a healthy way of being. So even though I was successful in that, it didn't really help me much. So I was married. I found out this stuff in 2016, and I tried desperately to save my marriage. It took me back out in 2019. Like, I had 12 years clean. In 2019, the pain from trying to force a relationship to stay together was so great that I gave up my clean time. I said, I do not want to feel this way. And I knew how to make that happen. So I ended up getting high in 2019 for 3 days. And then I tried to make it work. I tried to make it work for 3 more years. Well, it was working. It was working good. But at some point in June of 2022, drugs seemed to be a good option for me because I didn't want to feel that way. And even after that, I used for 3 days in June of 2022. And then again in November, which is getting too close to where we're talking about, November of 2022, when we'd moved into a big house, and we all kind of came together, and I, those types of things, hoping that they would cause some kind of a change. But all it did was it would just cause a lot of pressure to bring it to the surface. And some things happened where it became painfully obvious to me that I couldn't no longer stay in that relationship. Now, the relationship that I had was with one of the most wonderful women that has ever been born. She is an incredible person. So, I'm just telling you, she's the greatest person, and I'm so grateful for her and what she's meant to me in my life. But the pain in knowing that I was going to have to divorce, right? To divorce her was very hard for me to deal with, because, and to that point, I had never even broken up with a girl, right? Because I'm telling you, codependency, that was my main thing. And whatever girlfriends I did, I wasn't going to break up with them because that was my identity, right? So this is a big deal for me. And I knew it was going to happen. And so I used again for the third time in all those years. And this time was a little bit different. I don't know if I got a hold to bad dope or just did more than I should have, because I didn't use for 3 days. I used for 9 days, and my body started shutting down on me. And I knew that my my nervous system, it was so out of whack. It felt like I was being shocked. Like if you put your hands on two electrical leads and somebody had like a variable resistor, and they start cranking it up right to that point, right before you say, oh shit, and let go. Like, right before that, that's what it felt like, and it wouldn't stop. And my digestive system had stopped, and I was completely dehydrated. That's why I love water. I thank God every time I take a drink now, and I'll tell you something else in a minute. But I remembered I was dying. My brain, like, the best way I can describe it is that my brain had tunnel vision. It was like my ability to think shrunk, almost like when you get tunnel vision with your eyes, and you're like, oh shit, I'm about to pass out. And I was like that, but it was with my ability to think. And I was extremely scared that I was about to die. And it lasted for about 24 hours. All of that did. And it was horrible. I'd say horrible. The reality is it was traumatic. It wasn't horrible. It was the most wonderful thing that I've ever experienced in my life in retrospect. But I was desperate. I remember being at the hospital that didn't want to treat me. They couldn't understand me. I was trying to tell them to give me some water because I kept choking on my tongue. It was getting stuck in the back of my throat. It was the most dehydrated I've ever been. My digestive system wasn't working. It hadn't worked in 5 days. And I was scared for my life. I didn't want to die that way because, I've known God. Listen, I've known God since before I was born. I have a spiritual memory of being with him. I met Christ at 7 years old, and I didn't do it to gain heaven or escape hell. I didn't do it for any other reason except for I wanted to know a man that loved me enough to die for me. And I met him in the aisle on the way down to the front at a place called Crossroad Baptist Church. And I'm going to tell you, nothing I had to say. I didn't have to say nothing. I didn't have to repeat after anybody. I met him. He showed up to me just like I'm looking at you. It's like his face appeared before me. And he looked at me like, hey, how are you? And I looked at him like, hey. It was like, without saying a word, we embraced each other. That's when my relationship on earth with Christ started, or however you want to look at that. But, people can say it how they want. I don't know. It really doesn't bother me how people want to describe what it is, because all I really do is share my experience. That is my experience of what I know. I'm not believing in something that I read that somebody says, so this is what it is. And I'm like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. I think I'll believe in that. That's not my experience. My experience is I know the one in whom I believe, right? So 7 years old, that happened. So now here I am in this hospital, right? Thinking I'm about to die. I leave the emergency room because they're not listening to me. I needed some water. I remember going to the front of the hospital and going in and seeing a machine where you could use your credit card, to get water, which is hard enough for me whenever I'm, when I'm sober. But in that position, it was a challenge. I just remember thinking, oh, please, God, I need this. And I kept swiping the card. I don't know. I might have bought 15 of them. I don't know. But I kept doing this and I kept pushing the button. I kept doing it and kept doing it. All I know is I saw that bubble move and I just started crying because I knew I was going to get water. I was going to get water because it had been a long time, because they kept me from drinking water when I got in the ambulance to come to the hospital, right? And they wouldn't give it to me, not even a cube of ice. And I'm grateful for that today. I'm not mad at them. All you people know Dallas Regional. Everybody's had experience with Dallas Regional. Anyway, I'm so grateful they treated me that way, because that's the way I needed to be treated. But that bottle fell, man, and it hit. And I just remember picking it up, taking a drink and just crying and praying and thanking God. And I was still scared because I still knew I was going to die in that condition. But it wasn't going to be because I choked to death on my tongue, because I got some water and it was a pretty good size one. So, but I was having the hardest time contacting people. I have 3,000 contacts in my phone. I have 3,000 Facebook friends. I remember putting a message on Facebook that said, I'm scared, I'm at the hospital, I don't know what to do. And people were reaching out to me to try to help. But what I needed was somebody to pick me up and keep me hydrated and give me something to get my digestive system to work. Okay. Because all the poison was in my body and it wasn't releasing. I began to throw up, and it was really scary. It was really scary. It was really traumatic. And I talked with the mayor of Mesquite that day. He prayed for me. Awesome man. Man, he's number one in my book right now. Telling you, he always will be. And I remember I was in the bathroom just crying, just praying, same thing. And I remember somebody banged on the door, and it was the cops. And they were looking at me like, dude, you know, obviously something's going on. And I knew they were going to take me to jail. I figured it would just be like public in talks or whatever. But I hadn't used it about 4 days, right, from then. I hadn't used. I was just, the effects of it was taking its toll on me. And so they were just about to take me to jail. But I remembered a guy from Narcotics Anonymous, and I've already asked him before if I could share, but I'll just say his name. His name is Benny. And it was 3:00 in the morning, and he answered the phone. I called because my brain finally let me think of one person, the first person that actually I could think of that could be somebody within my area. And it was 3:00 in the morning, and he answered the phone, and I told him what I needed, and he drove from his house, and he came to the hospital, and he picked me up. Well, he walked in, and those cops were talking to me. And so that's why I say he saved my life, because those cops were about to take me to jail, where I know I wouldn't have been treated. I would have stayed right there, and I would probably died right in that jail cell, like a lot of people have done. And they asked him, said, man, do you know this guy? He's like, yeah. He said, you want to take him? He's like, I'll take him. And I just remember being so grateful. And as soon as I walked and I got in the truck, and Benny had that stuff that you take for a colonoscopy. He's like, dude, drink that. And I was like, and he kept saying, drink it all. It's like, it was horrible. Anybody's had a colonoscopy knows that stuff isn't fun to drink. And he would say, he said, drink it all, just drink it. And he gave me the stuff that I needed to help me go. And he drove me to my RV, which I'm in right now. And he sat with me for hours. And let me tell you, stuff still wasn't working. Digestive still wasn't working. And my wife at the time came over, and she was none too happy at all. But she did for me wonderful things and helped me in that moment. And when, let's just be just to be real nice about it, when my digestive system started working properly, at some point, about 5 hours after Benny picked me up, everything in my spirit went from fear of death to absolute gratitude. Like everything left me except for gratitude. Resentments, fear, shame, anger. There was nothing in my spirit active at that moment but gratitude. And there were a lot of people praying for me at the same time, because they had read the Facebook post, right? They were hitting me up on Facebook Messenger, phone voicemails, text messages, Facebook posts, and everybody was thinking or praying or whatever it was. And here's what I believe. Okay, here's what I believe. I believe that power of everybody really praying or thinking, or that energy that was pushed towards me in a way that wanted me to be healed or helped, plus me being spiritually in a position where I could receive what happened. I remember I sat back in that bed right over there. I leaned my head back, and as soon as I closed my eyes, I'll say the best way to describe it is that God showed up for me, and I could see him. and he was probably about 6 inches away from me. And he looked like spiritual fire. And he never said a word, and neither did I. But we froze and we locked eyes for, it was probably about 5 minutes, probably realistically, if I could go back and think about a timeline. But it was like he was an uncontainable spiritual fire. And he never said a word, but I was getting all of the information that he wanted to give me. I don't know how that looks or works, but I just know that what I experienced wasn't what I thought or believed. It was what I knew. And I knew what was happening. I knew who he was, and I knew how he showed up. I believe it was probably his heart, or part of his heart I was looking at, because it was pure love that I saw, pure love from God. And the things that he taught me of himself, and the things that he showed me that he was and that he wasn't, I was just absorbing it all, and I was just seeing it all, you know. You know, and when I say this, right, when I say this, I'm not saying that this is the way it is for anyone else, you know, for anybody. Like, just because this is what I experienced doesn't mean that I think other people need to see it that way or understand it that way, or if I think it's that way for them too, because I really don't know, to tell you the truth. But I do know what it is for me. Okay. I do know what it is for me. I don't think it or believe it. There's a lot of thoughts and beliefs that I have. I have faith in things, but I know God because I have experience with him, right? And I've had it multiple times in my life. So to say that I believe in him is different than saying that I know him.
I get that. Let me pause just a second. There's so many things. I mean,
yeah,
there's like 15 different things that I'm thinking of right now.
Oh,
First of all, I wanted to put this out there just to have it on recording.
Yeah,
is that I watch a lot of podcasts and such that show people who've had experiences similar and near-death experiences and stuff like that. And I know that there is almost an angry reaction to this sometimes for people. It's almost offensive to somebody. And I just wanted to air that out because, you know, I'm not here to offend anyone. I personally, I get totally, I feel what's going on when I hear these stories. And the night that you reached out and we connected on Messenger, I could feel that switch, that change, you know. And so in that timeline that you're describing, it must have been from the time that I first contacted you, and then that must have taken place because I felt that love that you were feeling. I felt that like like the sun came up, you know, all of a sudden you were in this dark night, and then all of a sudden now you're Mr. Sunshine, you know. And I was whoa. And then as I kind of watched your Facebook persona, whatever, you know, in the coming days, I realized something big had happened. So anyway, I just wanted to touch on that first of all, because and we can talk about that as to why people get so angry about that, about somebody telling the story from beyond the veil, as it were, you know. And the other thing is that you triggered something, a memory. I read a quote one time from Ron Boss a long time ago that he said, life can be boiled down to love everyone and tell the truth. And you talked about telling the truth and how that you weren't a truthful person, and then all of a sudden now you are. And that's huge, because that's a big one for me too, because the truth is, it does set you free, and you know it does. And when you live in it, it's like, and I'm not saying I am that, it's just the thing that really stood out to me in your story. But Anyway, I just wanted
Yeah.
to set those things in motion and take a pause, and now finish up and take as long as you like.
Well, you know, and just jump in, because I know I have a tendency to go on, and I get excited and passionate about things that, you know, that I believe in, and things that I think are worth sharing. And I don't share this with everybody. What I've learned over the last 8 months or so is that I try to share with people that I believe truly want to hear something like that, because they've asked, and I will share it if it can be beneficial, or if or by some type of media, because like my music now, I mean, the songs that I write now are basically just reflections of that experience of some sort, right? So that's all it is. But to kind of touch on what you were talking about, when you bring this up to, or I should say, when I've brought this up to people who haven't maybe had an experience like that, or their belief system is structured in a way that's different, I have had people be offended and say, well, why didn't he do that for me, or whatever. And you know, like I say, I don't have the answer for that. I don't have the answer for what anybody else should do. I used to. When I got clean and I stopped being full of shit, and I started, you know, I had all these sponsees, and I was all this clean time and marriage and all this stuff, and it looked like I was a guy that had some answers. I used to tell people what I thought they should do. Now I look back on that, and I'm really kind of ashamed of that behavior, you know, pretending as if I have the answer for what you need to do. You know, hell, I have a hard time getting my underwear on without tripping over and falling down some mornings. How do I know what you need to do? Right. So I look back on those things, but what I've learned is, you know, and truly this experience that I shared with God, which I've only told you about half of it, I learned a lot about him, and I learned about what he was and what he wasn't. And then after about 5 minutes or so, it was like I viewed through his eyes, and I was kind of looking up a little bit to the right into his eyes. And it was like all of a sudden I looked through his eyes and I looked down to the left, and he showed me myself. Okay. Now, he was this uncontainable spiritual fire, right? And then when I saw myself, I was a containable spiritual fire, and I was about the shape. I knew it was me. It's kind of like in a dream, you know, when you have a dream, you're like, I knew this and I knew that. It was that kind of knowing, right? I knew that it was me, but I looked about like a solo cup, right? Upside down solo cup, except for it was just fire, right? Just like him. And the only thing that was different, it was I had this fleshy, tattered robe draped around me, right? So there was a lot of holes in it, and a lot of light was getting through in all directions, and it was beautiful, but it was just being hidden, right? And so in that moment of about 5 minutes, what he taught me was everything about me. And all of the questions that I used to have, why did this and why that and why this, God, and why all the God questions, why do good things happen to bad people? Why did this happen to me? Why do they keep doing that to me? Why do I keep acting this way? Listen, I have no more God questions. I have no more questions for God. You can say he gave me the answers to them, or he let me see in a way which I don't need to ask questions anymore. But at that moment, I took and I understood what it meant to take 100% responsibility for my pain, for my offensiveness, for my actions, for my expectations, all of my heartache, all of these things in my life that I wondered, why do I do those things? He showed me clearly. It's because that's what I chose to do. I chose to do them. And what the way that I think I could describe the way I see today, or can see, or do see today, compared to what it was before, is I was looking through a lens of my love, which is very conditional, very carnal, very natural minded, very, I love you, I want to hug you, don't look at him, you're mine, come over here, this is what you're supposed to do, this is mine, I love it, but it's mine, very possessive type of love. And you said a word a while ago, it's powerful, man, and it's freedom. Freedom, like freedom looks like this, right? You can come hug me if you want, and then you can leave if you want. That's the kind of freedom that I understand today. And that's that expression of love, which is freedom today, is what I'm learning how to walk in, how to show love to people. And it's wonderful, man, because the truth is, what you said is that switch that was turning or whatever, but I am in love. Okay. I am in love. So people, some women will hear that and they're like, oh no, that's a special thing that you only say at a certain time. Now look, I am in love, right? Because God, which is love, is within me, and I am within him, within me. I am in love, right? So now, if I walk in love, I really don't have to look at the rules. Now, I want to tell you some things. You just jump in anytime you want. I want to tell you some things that I learned about God right now. For me, understand, and if you're out there and you happen to be listening or whatever, and maybe you went to school to learn how to be a preacher and what everybody's supposed to say, and seminary or whatever that is, and y'all already have all the answers, and I'm grateful that you do, because there's a lot of people that benefit greatly from what you have to share and offer. I don't look negatively on any of that stuff. I don't. I'm grateful for churches. I'm grateful for people being able to go and hear sermons and things like that to benefit from them, or a 12-step program, or any religion where you find love is what you want to live in. I'm for it. So I don't want to stand against that. But God showed me some things of himself, and without saying a word, it was like he said, you remember that tree that I told you to stay out of in the beginning? I still want you to stay out of it, And I was like, whoa, man, like the knowledge of good and evil, of right and wrong, that self-righteousness of this is right and this is wrong, and do this and don't do that, and they're wrong and they're right. You know what I'm saying? This real divisive way of being, where all we're doing is dividing people up. Well, I've found in my experience that love doesn't divide people up. Love unifies people, right? And even though I don't walk in it perfectly, I can no longer be okay with an unloving position. Like, I'm telling you, Dave, look, for my life, I've driven down the road, and traffic has been a big passion of mine, because I think it's so silly that we have smartphones, smart buildings, smart thermostats, smart, you name it, it's smart, except for our signal lights, right? So I have this, we're operating on timers with our signal. Anyway, so traffic is a big deal, and everybody that drives in a way that I thought they shouldn't drive, I'd automatically judge them and condemn them to dumb jail. And I had the whole thing written out, and stay out of the left lane when you're crowding people, and it was such a big deal for me, right? And I don't think it's wrong. I don't think I'm wrong about that. And that word wrong, it's so divisive, right? But today, listen, since November, I think I've probably let 3 people almost get under my skin on the highway. And what I do when I notice and I start feeling that oh, hey, you dumbass, that feeling, I go, hold on. This is a time for me to go back into love, and I'll slide over into the right lane, slow down, and be like, what am I in a hurry for?
Hey,
So yeah,
let
some things have changed.
Let me throw something in there
Yeah.
real quick, because I've been driving for
Yeah.
Uber for a couple of years, and the
Yeah.
first thing I noticed was my energy when I'm out on the road. That was the first thing,
Yeah.
and that was, that was my, maker telling me things about myself. That's kind of how
Yes.
I look at it, and I realized that my energy, sending out energy of that sort, like you're talking about, calling somebody an asshole or whatever,
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
goes to them.
Yeah.
It affects them, and it affects
Yeah.
you, because it is
Yeah.
part of who
Yeah.
you are. And so for me, my whole Uber experience is really based on that, being not going there and getting into
Yeah.
those things. And those things are road rage, and road rage is
Yeah.
that's the horrible end to that initial feeling, which is thinking somebody's an asshole, just
Yeah.
because they happen to not have their blinker on or whatever. And
Yeah.
so for
Yeah.
me, it's been an exercise. And then another thing you said, that I wanted to throw in, because I wrote a song last week. It was an Uber song, driving around in this big old city, watching the cars go by one as they try to get ahead, all in the same boat, all in a hurry, sadness all around. One day we'll get there. One day we'll be found dead.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and then the chorus is, everybody's got somewhere to go, all in a hurry. Everybody's got somewhere to go, but nowhere to be. And so
Yeah.
so the line that came to my head was, everybody's got somewhere to go, but nowhere to be. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, once I made the decision to not have the TV on as much, and watch mainstream news and all that stuff, there's this kind of
Mhm.
emptiness you feel sometimes. You're like, I need something going on, and instead of just being, and to be
Yeah.
able to just sit and be, it requires letting go of all these attachments, the attachments
Yeah.
to, coffee or drugs or TV or books, book learning, or whatever it is. But anyway, um,
Yeah.
that that was a big moment for me, is when I realized and started more of a kind of a hardcore night and day meditation um, ritual every day, night and day. I started realizing that there's a lot of that stuff that you were talking about, telling people about this or that, or like, I know something, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and I realized that
Yeah.
I don't know something, I actually,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know anything,
Yeah.
but one thing that I do know is that we're given a peace, we're given this peacefulness that you don't have to be going somewhere. You can just be. And that's a gift. If you have
Yeah.
cats will show you, they can just be for hours. They can be up a tree for 2 days, and and that's how we're built. But we cover it, and
Yeah.
that's the thing I wanted to ask you about. That love that you were given on that day,
Mm.
do you feel like you always had it, and that you just had it covered up with all the crap in your
Yeah.
life, or was it just a gift right there in that moment?
Uh-oh, looks like we might have
There
lost
we
him.
go.
He's back. Okay.
Yeah, he's back.
I'm back in.
Okay, we got you.
So I heard your question. Are we good to go?
Yeah, we're
Yep.
good.
Okay. So you said it exactly the way that I see it, which is, um, that love has always been there in its purest form. And, I think a way, because this is not something that I know, like how to describe it. I'm just giving you a good description of how I would see it, because there are things that I know, and that there's very few of those, and they are of God, right? That is what I know. I know who he is, and I know who he isn't for me, and I know who I am, and I know why I'm here. Like I know exactly who I am today, and I know exactly why I'm here today, right? So I know who I am because I saw myself the way he sees me, and I've seen him the way he is. And I know why I'm here, which is to love one another. And so those two things I know. Most everything else is just I know I experienced certain things, but that don't mean I know it. That means I've experienced certain things. Now, I would say maybe there's that love was within me the whole time. There's no doubt, God isn't any different than he was, and I know he's been within me. And so maybe it was a over time, this time period of getting to a point where I could let go of self. And that's really what it is. I think a lot of people give the devil a lot of credit for doing things, or God for doing things, whenever the truth is, he's given me free will. He's given me free will. Now, I can tell you some other things is that I understand things in a way that I think love allows me to understand them, by being able to see purely for at least the majority of time. At least for one moment, I know I was seeing purely, and now I don't even see close to what I used to. It's just a new. Everything has become new for me. Like all things are new to me. I can't see anything the same. My relationships, like with my wife, soon to be ex, is like that. I can look at that and start crying about, look what we lost, but that is so self-centered, right? The way I see it. And if I want to get tangled up in that selfishness of, oh, poor me, look what I lost. Well, I'm going to tell you, she was an awesome person, and I only gained from her. And I hope that I gave to her as well. I feel like that I did, but I look at the benefits of that. Now she has a daughter, and that relationship I haven't been able to have in a long time. I can be sad about that relationship, that I don't have it anymore, because I love her. She's one of my kids too, but I lost that. But I can either dwell on the emotional, self-centered part of look what I lost and be all sad, or I can look at it through love and say, it was a wonderful experience. And maybe I'll get to see her again one day. She has a son. And there was no two people on this earth, my grandson, Cullen, there was no two people on this earth that was any closer than me and him. Maybe they were as close as, but you couldn't. It was the most pure relationship I had on this earth, okay? And so I've shed a few tears since November about him, a few, but something stopped me, right? And it was love. Love says, what are you crying about? Are you selfish? You poor you, look what you lost. I'm like, wow, hold on. I can understand that. I mean, grieving is one thing. Something reasonable is, but once it passes a certain point, I'm just being selfish by the way that I miss something. And that's not a loving thing for myself. Because see, I love me today. I actually love me today. And that helps me understand, because that's my relationship with God. That love me is me being connected with God within me, and then sharing him with other people. That's that love part. So when I think about my grandson, I just think, what a wonderful relationship. Maybe I'll get to see him one day, maybe not, but I can't dwell on that. I have to move forward. And what God did for me, my oldest son, Richie, him and his wife, and she had two girls already when they got married, and then they had a baby. I spend a lot of time over there. I get to watch them, 3 or 4 days a week or so for 5 or 6 hours. And she's got 3 girls, and we have a blast. I mean, they all love me. I named their middle name. Let me see. Am I still on? Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. The background can't change. That's really cool. I've got coffee cups in the back. So
yeah, I could use
their names are beautiful, and I got to say them. They're Olive and Ella and Isla, and I named all of their middle names are view, like I view. So it's I love you and L love you and I love you and I hug them. And it's just so, here's what I'll say. I mentioned this earlier. This is very important, okay? This is an extremely important part. I mentioned my dad was physically abusive to me and emotionally abusive, right? Verbally abusive. But he also was very loving to me. And that was an extremely traumatic experience in my life. And I'm speaking to people who have had extremely traumatic experiences in their life. And I don't know what it is for you or how it's going to work for you. I'm going to tell you how it worked for me. Okay. This is how it works for me. And so if it helps you in some way, great. But here's what I've come to know. And I don't think this, here's what I've come to know, that traumatic experience was not wasted. It wasn't a bad thing. Didn't make me a victim. When I finally saw through love, what God said without words was, I didn't waste anything. I took that traumatic experience that you've had and I've used it to put you in a position to experience things that nobody else can experience. I've made it work for your benefit. And I see that today, like everything that has happened to me, God has used it to work for my benefit, especially the uncomfortable and unpopular times of my life. Okay. That's what I've learned, that I only could see through his eyes, right? My own eyes are so selfish that all I can see was that's a bad thing. And I would tell people, yeah, I was abused physically. And I want you to not feel sorry for me, although I'm sort of trying to play the victim while saying I'm not the victim, just this real self-centered sort of false humility BS shit that comes along with any self-centered or conditional love. But pure love wipes all that away. It doesn't have room for that. It doesn't have room for guilt and shame or resentment or requirements or expectations or entitlements. No, none of that stuff has room in love for me. Okay. And so I now experience things on a level that I never would have without what happened to me as a child. No chance of it. That's what I want to say. Now, if that's hopeful for somebody, I hope so. I'm not saying your traumatic experience is going to do that for you, because I don't know. I'm telling you that mine did. And I have no resentments against my dad. Like, he was a great man. Because all that negative stuff, that seemingly negative stuff that I experienced with him, he also loved me more than any dad could love their kid, or as much as any dad could love their kid. He spent all the time with me. He did love me. He set up a life that most people couldn't even imagine possible. And I just pissed it away because, I was busy doing drugs, not feeling, in those time periods. But man, I look back on people in a way now that just isn't the way I saw them before. I experience people today in a way that is nothing like I've experienced them before. So, like you mentioned earlier, being able to kind of let yourself be without, trying to be in a hurry and go and control some things and make people act a certain way. Like, I don't need you to be any kind of way. Just be yourself. And I'll be as loving as you allow me to be. And if that love says I need to move over here, well, I might need to move over here. And so, I'm still absolutely learning, but I'm learning with eyes that can actually see clear today. So I'm really excited about life today. I'm really excited about it.
Well,
I know you probably have some more questions.
It's really infectious. And that we had a conversation. It was the last time we actually spoke on the phone before I started messaging you about coming on our show.
Yeah.
Originally I had talked about doing a different kind of show, and then I figured, since I pitched the idea to Chris, because he's already set up to run all this stuff and he knows how to do it, and I knew it would be chaotic nightmare for me to try to figure it out. But that day we talked on the phone, I was driving back from the airport. I was really touched by the truth of the statement that I forgive my dad for beating me. That was it was really, I believed it, because as humans, we want to go, nah, he's in denial or whatever. No one could possibly forgive somebody for that, but that to me, that was the kind of moment where I realized that you had stumbled upon something really beautiful that night, and that happened to you. So do you does it, I'm assuming the answer is no, it doesn't, but does the memory fade of the event when you were in contact with that source?
No, right up there on my shelf right there, I have this thing that I was going to paint. I was going to paint a picture of it to memorialize it or whatever. It hasn't faded, none, zero. I see it the same as I saw it. It hasn't changed for me at all, not anything. And I seriously, I could talk about the things that I've gotten from that experience, probably until I fell asleep, and then I'd wake up and I could talk without stopping, probably, because it's eternally exciting for me. The things that are eternal are the things that excite me, and the things that are eternal are love and the things under it, like the expressions of love, which is freedom and patience and love and kindness, and these things that I don't always get right still. But what I have experienced is that I do not allow myself to cause harm like I used to in any kind of way, not even a little bit. And I have really good relationships today. I have really good relationships. I'm going to tell you a few things, and I was coming to this point, so it wasn't like it was just, I went from all the way over here to all the way over here. It was like I truly wanted this in my life, and I prayed plenty of times, God, show yourself to me the way that you want me to see you. I want to be that, and he allowed that to happen by way of my own self-centered choices that led me to almost my death, right? But I was seeking him. I was truly seeking him, because being a truth seeker began for me in October of 2006 when I found Narcotics Anonymous. Those two things happened to me. Stop using, and I stopped being full of shit, right? I started being an honest person. Like, truth was important to me. And now, I've been seeking that for a long time. And so when he showed himself in the way that I was able to see him, I began to learn some things about the way love behaves, is the best way to say it. And sometimes I have to behave the way that I used to, and then go, you know what, that's not love. I don't see things right or wrong anymore. I mean, they're obviously there, and I hear people, well, that's not right. I'm like, for you, that's okay. Well, you shouldn't do that. And I go, if that's what you believe, probably you shouldn't do that. But, for me, I don't look at it like what's right and wrong. I just look at what is loving. If this is what is the loving thing to do in this situation? And that's what I do. And, and I just follow it like that. Like, on the highway, whatever, I don't obey the speed limit. I obey the spirit of the law, which is go from here to there with everybody being okay, right? I try not to affect anybody's life unnecessarily. I don't want you to hit your brakes or swerve unnecessarily because of something I did. But that doesn't mean I'm going to use my blinker as I get over, or I'm going to follow the speed limit, or I'm going to stop at a stop sign, because I'll pull up to a stop sign. If there's nobody there, I mean, I think it doesn't make sense for me to stop at a stop sign where there's nobody around, because I told you I was passionate about traffic, and these smart signal lights would help people not have to stop. That would help brakes and stress and time and pollution, and the criminal element being stopped at a light where Maybe it's at night and your mom or your sister stopped at a light on a timer. And then how easy is it to get carjacked? So I look at things from a position of relative, intelligence and love. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense, but, right and wrong, good and bad. Well, that's good. I go, okay, if you say so. But it's hard for me to be, yeah, that's good. You're doing good. That's what I did for my youngest son. I taught him what was right and wrong. This was when I got clean. I was raising my son. I got custody of Riley, and I was raising him, and I was like, telling him everything. This is what's good. This is what's bad. This is what's right. This is what's wrong. Do this. Don't do that. Right. And he's, now he doesn't talk to me very much. And I look back and I think, I guess I know why. I raised the bar so high, he already knows that I think I know what's right and wrong about everything. So I began to have conversations with him post November, and I've started to get some real good conversation. And he's deaf, but he taught me sign language, his version. And so we communicate well, but he hears very well as well. And so because he has cochlear implants and he's done a really good job, but we've had conversations about this. And I told him about my experience with God. And I told him what I saw, how I raised him, and the way that I see things today. And he just started opening up to me. Like I've talked to him a few times and had some really good conversations. So repairing old relationships is, something I would like to do if the opportunity presents itself. But it's not a necessity for me. Like I'm just going to walk in love wherever I'm at. That's what God wants for me to be. Wherever I'm at, I know I'm in his will. I don't have to worry about what should I be doing. I don't have those questions. Wherever I'm at, that's what I should be doing. And, love one another. That's all I can be doing. So I don't have a necessity for anything but my relationship with God. Okay. And that's probably he's going to probably put people in my life, hopefully, where I can show them love. And when I say love, or when I say God, most people automatically attach religion to it. And if you got to do that, fine, do it how you want to do it. I'm just going to share. Mine has nothing to do with that, because one of the things that melted off of him when I was looking at him was religion. Religion melted off of him. Guilt and shame, it was like the fire that was on him was like the words were melting off of him. And I was watching these words and they couldn't stick to him. They couldn't stick to him. Right. And it was a revelation to me. Right. I was watching him show me the things that were of him. I could get into a few more things that would be really controversial. But I've done that in the past, and I don't really want to try to do that. But people talk to me about the Bible, and they try to ask me questions, and how do you feel about this? And then what do you think about that? Well, I know that I still read the Bible, or I listen to it a lot. I do. And I'm really not trying to read it to memorize anything, to show somebody that I learned something. I don't do that. I'll listen to it to see if he wants to say something to me. That's all I'm really doing. I'm reading to listen to see if he's trying to say something to me. And I think that's what I used to do. Here's the difference between what I used to do. I used to memorize things, and I can still quote them all and all that stuff, which it sickens me to do that today, because it sounds so, lifting myself up in some type of authority. I don't want to do that. I would rather just share with you what I've learned from it than try to prove to you that I know something. So I used to read it, memorize it, recite it to you, give you some kind of lesson, and put myself up as some type of an authority. And then, did that help you? Did that help you? And boy, I just feel good because I helped you, didn't I? Right? Today, if I read those things, or any way that God speaks to me and I read those things, it's for me. It's just for me to be, right? It ain't for me to tell you how to be. Now, some people might come to me and say, I'm having a problem with this or this or this. My automatic thing for me is I go, I've had experience with that, and this is what I've done. And I leave it right there. And they go, well, what should I do? I go, I don't know what you should do. You should probably seek what you should do from, a power greater than yourself, God, whatever it is that you got. But I'm out of the advice business, except for little kids, right? Little kids. And Paul, Daddy, can I touch the stove? No, you cannot. Once you're an adult, you're on your own with me. I'll share things. I'll share my experience, but I have no advice.
Yeah, I love that. In the past 6 months since I started doing more serious meditation, more regular, stillness, quietness,
Yeah.
one thing I started noticing was that I stopped reading so much. In fact, I wasn't reading at all. And I was a book a week kind of guy,
Wow.
and I would take that book and I'd pull out quotes and I'd tell people about that quote, and I think pretty much that's what we do. That's what our society does. We find something out there that's not inside of us. It's not, and it's not a direct line to the source, which what I believe is the source. And I think that communication is there if we remove our selfishness, and that kind of thing. And I feel like maybe that's kind of what has happened over the past few weeks for me, because I'm, and also just an awareness that that's what happens on social media. Usually if somebody's pissed off and they have some kind of angry statement, it's probably because they just watched a podcast or they read some news bit somewhere that got them going, and it's it's valid that they should get angry. I understand getting angry, I get that, it's good for you, good for the soul, I think, because it leads you back to peace, or it can, the other thing that that popped into my head when you were talking is that how very thin that veil is between somebody who's really close to God and somebody who's addicted to stuff, especially with drugs and stuff. A lot of the people that I know who are ex druggies or or knew them when we were doing drugs together or whatever, those are the spirit searchers. A lot of times, those are the people that are the most spiritual, but they just have these hangups, and it happens to be addiction. And the truth is we're all addicted to something, and on some level, that's just what we do. We get attached to things, and but anyway,
I get what you're saying, and I would say that a few things, like, for me, when I first got clean, I started viewing people that used like complete place of hypocrisy. Like, well, it's only wrong, right? Because I was in the right and wrong, good and bad. It's only wrong, and you just need to see it my way, right? Kind of deal. And I don't see it that way today. I really don't. I have no idea how somebody should be in their life, whether they're using it or not. It has no effect on me. I know that I can be around it and it doesn't bother me at all. Certain drugs I wouldn't be around. I would just lovingly remove myself from the situation. But there's an epidemic or a pandemic of people, and I wrote this in my last song we're recording on Friday. But there's this epidemic of people that are trying to convince or persuade someone to believe their point of view. They're desperate to convince somebody else to believe the way they do, no matter whether it's the God or there isn't a God, whether it's this God or that God, whether it's this political party or that political party, whether it's how to cook a steak, medium, rare, or or this. Everybody's got an opinion, but that's okay. But it's, for me, like for me, I know my line stops when I start trying to convince you to believe like me. that's what I've learned. One of the things that I've learned from this is like having something that you believe passionately about is one thing. The need to convince and persuade others to believe that way is a very self-centered position from the way that I see things for myself. I can share or declare what I believe, like I'm doing today, without trying to, promote or project it on somebody else, or go and try to recruit, or convert, or convince, persuade. I don't do that. I absolutely share what I share because I believe it for myself, and I don't want to unsolicited or to share it in a way that is unsolicited. I don't need to stand on a corner, share, doing that. And I'll even say, if you're doing that, I don't know if it's, I don't know if that's loving or not loving for you. I don't know. I know what I'm supposed to be doing, so I'm going to try to stay in my own lane. And for you to, have me on here on a disc golf show, that this is a disc golf show, by the way, folks. It is
plastic.
And yeah, and I'm going to say, I didn't say, I don't know if I said this earlier, but my very last disc golf throw was an ace, and it was at Zebo's on hole 18 in the left position from the short. And I looked at it. My son Richie was there. My friend JJ Munoz was there. And I'm looking at it, and I'm sitting there complaining about it, because the other two positions, you got a shot. This one on the left, there's just no shot. I mean, it's like a spider web of trees and stuff. If you've been on it, if you played there, the left one, it's like, what do you do? I mean, what do you really do? And I was complaining about it. I was like, this is just really stupid. This is stupid. And I laughed, and I got up there. I said, I'm going to miss that tree right there. And I threw, and it went, and it missed it. I went, well, I missed it. And they were watching, and it looked like it was going to hit a tree, and it just didn't hit it. And it looked like it was going to hit another, it didn't hit it. And it was by the way, it was a Cobra, DX Cobra, most underrated disc in disc golf possibly. And it just kept that little bit of right going and rung up the center chains and lifted it up and right down the pan. So the very last throw that I've had in disc golf is an ace. Anyway, I wanted to throw that in because it is a disc golf podcast. I want to throw that in there. But
now, thanks for that. Yeah, I threw the wolf. Is that what you called it?
The wolf.
Is that what you call it? What was the disc?
The disc is a Cobra.
Oh, Cobra. Okay, the wolf was the kind of same. It had the thumb track. It's the same kind of mode. Yeah.
Cobra. It's like a beaded stingray.
Yeah,
you can say. But I throw stingrays and Cobras. But yeah, that was kind of cool. Now I got to go play again pretty soon. But man,
hopefully we can play together sometime.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Let's talk a little bit about your music and tell us again where we can find it. I was on your Facebook page and checking out some stuff, and I'd already listened to a lot of it, but I love the Landslide. Stevie Nicks song. It's a great song. Great images for what you've been talking about tonight. Very, very good stuff. But
sure.
Bill is an amazing musician, singer. It looks like you've probably been lead singer in bands. But your guitar work was amazing too.
Yeah, I enjoy it. And I've been playing since I was 14. My dad was my first musical influence because he was singing all those gospel songs in the bathroom while he was shaving. And my brother Brett, which I talked to today, first time in a long time, he would play the drums on the countertops in the kitchen, when he was probably, 10 or 12, and so I got my beat from him and my singing from my dad. But I've been playing guitar since I was 14, and the music that I do today is kind of it's really about what we've been talking about. It's very much about the way I see life and love and the approach to it. The name of the YouTube channel you can go to is Net153, NET, like a fishing net 153. So it's a story. If you're a Bible person, if you've read the story, there was these guys on a boat, and they'd been fishing all night and caught nothing. And I'm a fisherman, so I've caught nothing a lot of times too. And so from the shore, they see a person, they're like, hey, cast your net on the right side of the boat, right? And so they're like, I know if I would have been on the boat, I'd have been like, who does he think he is? I've been, there's nothing. And so, well, all right, let's try it. So they throw the net on the right side of the boat, and they can't hardly get the fish in. There's so many. And so as the story goes, they counted, and there's 153 fish in the net. So net 153 YouTube channel. There are several songs that hadn't been released yet, and they are really good. I'm excited, and I've just gotten into doing my own video work with Final Cut Pro. It's a lot of fun and it's a lot of work. So Kingdom's coming out. There'll be Kingdom coming out. Another Day's coming out. And then a new song, which I don't know what it'll be called yet, but they'll be recorded in the next few days. But the work that we got to do on video before it gets released. There's also Won't Stay Down, which there's the guitar piece on Net 153. You'll see an acoustic version of it, but it's been and that right there, what you're seeing on the screen is Hallelujah, and that's Josh right there playing the drums, and his dad Chuck, which recorded the music at Hot Tracks in Garland. Them dudes are just awesome, man, just awesome studio musicians, recording engineers, and live performers. They're just awesome folks. And but that song right there, that's the one. If you watch that song, or if you listen to it, you'll hear it say, I remember crying and praying and using it at the same time. And it's a little bit about my story coming up, but you'll see some stuff on Net 153. You'll get to see a lot of different stuff. I'm feeding a pit bull with a ladle. There's all kind of weird stuff on there, but that's a love story too. I'm not a big pit bull fan. My neighbor pinned one up next to me on the fence that I know he could have jumped over, and I thought, me and you need to have a good relationship, don't we? Talking about pit bull, and so we got a good relationship going. And so I fed him 2 or 3 times a week with that ladle on there. But yeah, man, a lot of good music coming out. Meeting with somebody that might be a manager for me, which is a big deal, a brand manager, and probably some type of band manager if she wants to. But I'm meeting with her, and she'd really help out because, with music, there's a lot of great artists that have incredible music that nobody really gets to hear, because you have to be promoted. You have to be exposed into in front, and that takes to be able to happen. And so I'm very aware that I'm only writing and singing songs and stuff. I know I need a team.
Yeah, you're kind of breaking up on us.
The team wins on that one every time. And so I'm hoping to put a team together.
Okay. Yeah, I think that came across. It seemed like it was breaking up a little bit. Yeah, I watch a guy, a podcast of Rick Beato. He's a music genius. He was like a studio musician / engineer, and he has a lot of really cool stuff to say about the music business. And he held up this device that had like 16 bands, all the things they had recorded. And he said, this is some of the greatest music you'll ever hear. And this was like these guys' lives. I mean, their whole entire lives, from the time they were 14, like you said, playing in the garage, learning guitar, to the going to the studio, to doing all the road stuff, playing gigs and all that. And nobody will ever hear any of this stuff. And I've got hundreds of these. And so he's talking about how very hard it is for that music to come to life. And I understand it as a musician, that it takes a lot more than just being a songwriter, musical, musician, roadster, going out and hitting all that stuff. It takes business. It's a business. And so once you get tapped into that, and I'll be following you. I'm looking forward to hearing your recordings, and maybe one day just sitting down and playing music together live. That'd be
Yeah.
great,
Like,
just sharing songs and stuff.
yeah,
Anyway, well,
right. It'd be
we've gone we're pushing to 2 hours now. This we're going for the record. We could definitely have you back. I would love to talk more. Your signal seems to be breaking up a little bit. Hopefully
over here or not.
hopefully your signal will clear up, because I wanted to ask you one last question. Is there any message that you'd like to send out to whoever might pick it up, or sponsors you want to thank, or anything else you'd like to say to finish out the show tonight?
Well, like for me, and I don't know if you're getting any of this, but I would say this, like, a relationship with God, but I also know that I want what
Think you might have locked up there, Hemi.
Yeah.
Because I play the same way in
Yeah, it
this
looks like
RV that I would do in any venue, and musicians that would to do those things. That's it. I'm already successful with as far as anything that I need. I don't, but it's given me the opportunity to live life with freedom, with with myself out of the way. So hopefully things will start happening in a way that that benefit folks, and for whatever I do, because that's all I wanted to do is be loving and beneficial in people's lives. So I don't know if that broke up too much, but tell me, did you hear any of it?
yeah, we cut the last few sentences, missed out on
Yeah.
some of the very first part, but yeah,
Yeah.
what you're saying there, to be beneficial to somebody, you
Yeah.
have been for me. And like,
Yeah.
I feel like
And you, me.
sometimes, and this is not something that I know, it's just a feeling, it's just a hunch, but the spirit works through people that you're connected with, and so I think it's important to say the thing that you're feeling, and not necessarily to get
Yeah.
props or to get, you know, um, like you were talking earlier about, okay, now I'm up here because I have this thing to say,
Uh-huh.
not for that reason, but
Yeah.
just, you never know, man. You never know when you're touching somebody's life. And you have touched mine for sure. And so I just wanted to say thank you, and hopefully we can do this again. I'd like to I'd like to hear more, especially when you get your music recorded, and where you want to present it, and come on, we'll play it. We'll talk about life again, and then
Yeah.
we'll sprinkle
Awesome.
in some disc
Awesome.
golf maybe.
Yeah. Awesome. Turbo. They call me the turbo roller because I putt with a lot of turbos. And I
Okay.
throw a lot of rollers.
Nice. I like it. I
Yeah.
like it a lot.
I'm the turbo roller.
All right. Well,
Right on. Good. Thanks for having
hopefully,
me on, Dave.
yeah, thank you, Bill. Hopefully we'll have a chance to throw some discs or sit around and play guitar, sing.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Awesome.
Well,
Let's do both.
Thanks a lot, Bill. I
Let me
appreciate
know when
you,
you're
man.
available.
All right.
Hey, Bill,
Bye,
I
brother.
but
brother.
I know I
Thanks,
can't
brother.
talk a whole lot, but I just wanted to thank you for coming on this evening. I apologize I wasn't being able to be more interactive, but really appreciate the insight. Really appreciate what you had to open up about, and thank you so much for coming on this evening and sharing.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Okay, I guess before we go, I want to thank Lone Star Disc best disc company in America, up and coming, best plastic in America. What else can I say? Good luck to all you Lone Star guys out there, competing in the, what do you call that? World Championship. Flagstaff. I don't even, if it's not on the Disc Golf Network, I don't keep up with it. No, I'm kidding. I am watching the scores. I noticed Holly Finley jumped in there with a hot round, tying up Owen Scoggins. That would be a huge step for Holly Finley. Jen Allen's in there. Shannon Barker right there in 7th place. Yeah, so I'll be going over this more so we can talk about it next week. There's Robert Bird's dad in there. Oh, no, wait, that's Bainbridge. But anyway, all you Lone Star guys out there, good luck, and keep doing what you're doing. Chris, thank you. I know you've had a rough couple of days, but I appreciate all the work you've done.
Thank you, Dave, also for doing this evening. And I am not the best host. You are by far. And thank you for bringing on such a wonderful guest as well. It was a pleasure. And like you said, it was something we don't do normally, but I think that it was just an enlightening experience for me to be able to sit here and listen to that as well. And that's about all I'm going to be able to say before my mouth starts falling apart. Okay. So, but I do want to thank Lone Star as well. And hey, and it was amazing playing with you before with your new bag as well. Didn't know if you kind of wanted to lead into how you felt about your new bag that they got you.
Yeah, I love it. I'm right now trimming down and trying to simplify all this. I've got so many different options, and I feel like I've got everything I need. I did taco and lose my BB6 on the same hole, I think. So I'm going to be needing another Delta BB6. I definitely need 2 or 3 things, to kind of tidy it up, but I do feel comfortable. In fact, I might be playing the flex tomorrow. Talk to Lefty Mike, and he might be up for it. But if anybody's out there, or if you know of anybody, Chris, I'm looking for early round north side. I think Tanner's doing it tomorrow over there, Northside Christian.
And what do you think about that new putter? And you've been putting with the same putters as I've known you. I tell you right here, all these shots right here, and I didn't even get a couple that you hit, but man, that bonnet was working for you.
I love it, and I also am kind of torn because I love the Benny too. That Delta 2 Benny is it's an amazing putter. I see that being his, kind of like their wizard. And what I mean by that is how Gateway pretty much stayed alive and stayed in the game, in the disc golf game, through that one putter. All their other discs kind of never really made a dent. I know there's a lot of Gateway that Ricky Bobby throws that he likes, so I'm not all that familiar with it. I'm just kind of talking out of my back end, but
well, I know you had a little
but my point being, the Benny is amazing, and especially in the Delta 2 plastic. I love it. And so I'm having kind of a hard time deciding if I'm gonna just go one or the other. But that blue bonnet just feels so comfortable. It's kind of biggish in my hand, kind of bigger than my Challenger was when I was throwing the Challengers. But I feel 100% comfortable with all the stuff I have in my bag. I don't feel like like I'm going to lose any. If I lose any step or any strokes, it's going to be because I'm not that good. It's not going to be because I didn't have good plastic.
Well, like you told John right here, he was asking what was wrong with this shot. And you said, if he threw better plastic, it'd be a better shot. Yeah. He just needs to put a little Lone Star and it won't do this.
Yeah, he's not happy about it.
Oh man, sorry. I had to give up for that.
That's like the kayak flip. You're going to be using that one for a long time.
I will be. There's a couple. He has a couple of these. I just haven't pulled them out. I'll put them back to back. So we'll kind of rewind it, put it back in his hand. You know, he was giving me a lot of good ideas of what I could do with the video. So I will definitely trying to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. John did pretty good in the bag stuff as we were going. I hope to see some of that stuff too that you recorded that day.
I do have that, and the whole goal is also to get the rest of yours out along with the rest of the series that I have with Yeti, because I think he gave us so much wonderful information as well.
Oh yeah, I watched that again today, and he uses the word spush. Does that ring a bell?
He does.
Spin push, and I think that's what I do. I think I'm a spush putter kind of. I'm not sure. I'm a spush. But one thing that that I had kind of one of those mental mantras going, or just sort of, you know, when you say I figured something out, or I had this thing happening that day and I putted well, you know, kind of a little thing that you were remembering. And one of them was that the big part of your arm bone right here, so when you release it, I'm visualizing this bone that's my arm pushing toward the basket. And there was just something, sorry, there was just something that made it click to where maybe I was before I was maybe taking the arm and swinging it as opposed to pushing it, you know, pushing it that way. So anyway, that was kind of my aha moment to where I felt like I started putting better. But you know, at this point in my game, it's all about fun, and I just wanted to challenge myself tomorrow to. I saw that there was a flex at Northside, just kind of a sanctioned round. I just have that bug, so we'll see how it goes. But can't get mad, you know. You can't get mad if you don't practice. I mean, if you put 500 to 1,000 putts a day and then you still putt like crap, then maybe you can get mad, or you can go find out what the other problem is. And anyway,
Amen to that.
That's it. I'm rambling, but
okay. Well, I think that's it for this evening anyway. I cannot wait till next week. We'll get the rest of this video up for everyone to see. I loved your idea how we're going to end the show. And I think John Bowen kind of helped us with that as well, did he not? He just said, just fling it, bro. Just fling it.
Yeah, he added the bro. Just fling it. All right.
All right.
Thanks, brother. Chris. Thanks for your hard work, man. Get well fast and let's play disc golf.
Will do. Show until we see Mikey doing the next week, folks. Y'all have a good night. Thank you, David. Thank you, Bill. Good night to everyone. We'll see y'all next week. Peace.